Hey guys, what's happening? Chris here. One of the most stressful things of finding a job in the game industry as a game designer is for sure the interviews. This is because interviews in the game industry are very different from interviews in other fields. So that is why in today's video, I'm going to talk about tips that will help you ace a game design interview so you can maximize your opportunities of getting hired. The first tip is to research the company that you're having an interview with. This is important because there are game companies that work on different projects depending on which company it is. For example, Treyarch usually creates FPS games, like Call of Duty, and that is very different from a company like Codemasters, which is a company that specializes in car driving games. If you are familiar with the company, you can have better preparation for your interview, since a lot of the questions that they're gonna ask you are going to reference the games that they work on. An interviewer might ask you to think about one feature that you might want to implement in their game and why. So knowing their games and history, you can be better equipped to answer that. The second tip is to ask good questions. An interview is not just for you to answer questions, but also for the company to answer the questions you might have. Never leave an interview without asking questions, as it can make employers think that you don't have a real interest in the company. Some good questions you can try asking are whether there are opportunities for mentorships within the company, or if there are growth opportunities available once you are working there. Try to not deviate too much from the actual company and its work and ask something completely unrelated. I personally like to wait to ask about compensation until an offer is given, since most places ask you for a range up front. Focus on things such as learning about the company culture, opportunities for growth, what they look for in an ideal candidate, or where they see the company going in the next 5 years, and how you might be able to play into that vision. The third tip is that when showing your portfolio, you need to talk about specifics about what you did and how you did it. This is very important because employers are interested in you and not in somebody else's work. When answering their questions about your work, try to be as specific as possible in telling them what was your contribution to the project. They will want to learn what the hardships that you faced were and how you solved them. They will also probably ask you about situations where you had communication or other types of issues with your team and how you solved those. They will want to check you can work in teams and collaborate, so anything you can do to showcase that is probably good to include in your portfolio and presentation. The fourth tip is to avoid lying at all costs. I have been interviewing people for 2 years now, and it is very evident when people lie about something, especially if it is related to your portfolio. If an interviewer asks you what exactly you did in the project, and you only designed the UI, but you are saying that you designed the systems of the game, then you are in big trouble. People are going to start asking questions about how that system specifically works. If you didn't work on it, chances are you're not going to know the answer, and you are going to give a bad impression. It's not a bad thing to not do everything. No one expects you to be perfect. The fifth tip, and this is what helped me nail the interview that got me my current job, is that if you can, you should work on a prototype specifically designed for the company's games. This is a really amazing and creative way of getting into an interview. Not only does it make you memorable, but it is an amazing experience when you tell them that you have something to show them. It feels really great to see their curious faces and their first impression when they see your prototype. Even if it is a really quick and rough prototype, this can be viewed as going the extra mile. The best part is that it will actually give you control of the interview, because people are going to talk about the project, and thus the questions they have will be easier for you to answer. It's a lot easier to talk about the specific prototype you just made because it will be fresh on your mind. The sixth tip is to always assume a design test is coming. This can be very stressful because you never expect it, but then it comes your way anyway. Design tests vary in terms of what the company might tell you to do and their constraints. One company might have you complete a design test on site with a time limit of 3 hours, while another might give you a week or so to complete it at home. These tests normally have to do with giving you a challenge based on an existing game. Some of them might require you to use software, such as a game engine or a modeling tool to achieve it. An example of a level design test might be that they give you a specific setting like a city or a desert and a story setup or beat. This will tell you that a certain character needs to find an object or beat a boss. Your task is then to build the level based on those constraints. An example of a game design test will be to create a document in which you are asked to provide a feature for a specific game and describe it. You need to explain how it works, why it is a good idea, and what potential issues there might be with it. Additionally, they might want you to explain how it will affect gameplay or how it will change the gameplay experience. Unfortunately, there is not a specific advice that I can give you to complete these tests, as they can be very different from each other and vary a lot from company to company. However, the best advice that I can give you is to make sure you are prepared for them, so it doesn't catch you in surprise. Always work on your skills and keep practicing so you're ready for it when it comes. The 7th tip is to work on developing good communication. When you're having a game design interview, and particularly in later stages of the hiring process, you're going to be having what is known as panels. These are interviews in which a group of 3 to 5 people talk with you for an hour, and then after that, another group comes in, and so on. These groups can be from different disciplines. In my case, I had one group being programmers, one group being producers, and the last one being designers. It is very important for you to not get frustrated with the questions that are repeated. It is an important test for you to be able to speak the different languages of different members of the team, because if you are hired, you are going to need to communicate with a lot of different areas in the company. Trying to explain something to a programmer is very different from the way you might explain it to a producer. Keep this in mind and make sure they understand you clearly while being polite and respectful. The 8th tip is to assume that you're always in an interview, from the time you arrive to the company to the time you leave. There are moments when you go to the interview at a studio where a designer might give you a tour of the studio, or you might get lunch with a few employees of the company. Try to always approach these moments as if they are interviewing you as well, because they are. They're trying to learn how you are in a more casual environment, and what you do and what you say at all times matters, because they're going to have to interact with you often, and the fit has to be right for both you and them. Remember that an interview doesn't really end up until you're actually in your car driving home. The 9th tip is to review some basic questions that they might be asking you so you're prepared to give a good answer. You can go on the internet and search for normal questions that employers might ask you. This is a great way to get a head start and think about your responses so that you don't get caught off guard. Just keep in mind that they might not ask you that question at all. In any case, it is better to be prepared for something that might not be asked than to not be prepared at all. As you can see, game design interviews can be very challenging and intimidating at first. The good thing is that, as with anything else, the more interviews you have under your belt, the more experience you are going to get. Eventually, you will be able to land that game designer job that you want. And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Do you find these tips helpful? Please let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you like this video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. See you next time!